Well, it's Monday night. That means it's time for Dylan Talks Tone on the YouTubes. How's everybody doing tonight? We're going to talk about nuts and saddles and all kinds of fun stuff. How are y'all doing? It is Monday night at 9 p.m. This is Dylan Talks Tone on the internets. We are on every week. This is a guitar channel. We talk all about guitars and guitar tone and gear and that sort of stuff. And this show is a little bit different than all the other stuff we normally do because you can watch the whole thing live on the YouTubes. And Leslie over here is going to help you. What can they do to be a part of our show tonight, Leslie?
So we are live on YouTube. You can find us at youtube.com/Dylan Talks Tone. And if you find the live video that is happening right now, there is a live chat that you can join in and ask questions, be a part of the conversation. We have a really good community building there. So you can ask questions of the people in the community. You can let me know if you have a question specifically for Dylan and we'll try to get to it. But yeah, just come join us and hang out. Say hi, say where you're from.
Excellent. Before we get too far into this show, I just want to let everybody know that it is brought to you in part by Randy's Luthier Palace. It is a guitar repair and setup shop in Greenfield, Indiana, which is right outside of Indianapolis. With over 40 years of experience playing and repairing guitars, Randy can take care of all of your needs like setups, fret leveling, rewiring, new pots, Floyd Rose stuff, all this kind of stuff. Check out Randy's work on his Facebook page at facebook.com/guitarphysician and on his website at randyslUthierPalace.com. So I just wanted to share that with everybody before we got going.
Russell said you're looking spiffy tonight.
I am. You know, I had a meeting today at like 1 o'clock and I never changed my shirt. I sat in...
Which also means he kept clothes on all day.
It is. It's funny because I do change clothes a lot. I do. A lot. I use a lot of clothing. Well, what's going on over there in the chats? Is everybody saying hi? We got some people hanging out with us?
We do already have some people hanging out and just talking. Some people are already talking about a tailpiece. I don't know.
Okay.
The TOM and tailpiece. What is that?
Tunomatic.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to talk about some stuff regarding some stuff. So my computer, for some reason, doesn't like to make sound with the volume down. I don't know why that is. That sounds stupid, but that's what the deal is. And you can hear everything, right? You're good?
I think so.
Okay. Excellent. We were just running in here at the last minute today. It's been a crazy day. Literally running in here. One of the things that I want to talk about tonight is, and I don't normally do this, but nobody ever asks. So I probably would do it more if people asked. I have this guitar right here. And somebody on Facebook said, you don't have a demo video of this guitar.
What?
And I'm interested in it. The only one we have is Billy Dawson, Nashville recording artist, played it at NAMM once.
Oh, yeah.
And we made a video with him playing it. But it was through a Blackstar amp. It was really loud. It was just really, So, and I don't ever talk about this guitar. We talk about a lot of the other ones. And, this one needs to go to a good home. And so today, when I made an announcement that I was trying to sell this one on the internet, somebody said, well, can you do a demo of it? And I was like, do you want me to I'll just talk about it a little bit while we're on the show tonight. And I'll play it a little bit and show you that in just a few minutes. We're going to also talk about some stuff that came in over the internets and a question that was pretty much inspired by everybody else last week, which is the whole nut material, saddle material thing. We're going to talk about some options therein. I actually I think Gibson has a really cool idea. I'm just going to say that. I put it in the title for tonight because...
And was that a purposeful pause? Like,
well,
let that sink in for a minute?
Let it sink in for a minute. I really dig this thing that they did in 2015 that everybody else hated, and I think it's a very cool idea. So we're going to talk about that. And let's see what else. What else are we going to talk about? That's all we got so far. And any questions that might come up, we're going to try to fit them in and have a conversation about them. Some of the questions that we got from last week, let's just talk about this. I wanted to talk about some of this stuff, but man, it was real difficult to put into a format that we could share in the time that we had between last week and this week. Like a Floyd Rose FRX versus a Stets bar. Like, I can't even get one of those parts here fast enough to do that this week. Somebody wanted to talk about dummy coils. I want to actually wind one and do a video about that, and I've not had the chance to do that. So I want to actually really do that. I don't want to just talk about it. The reason I'm bringing this up is because for those of you that asked for this stuff, I want you to know I'm not ignoring your questions. We talked about buzz and hum. And somebody asked last week, these are some questions that might have come in the chat after the show were over too. So, will a USA Strat bridge plate fit a Squier Strat? Are the screws the same spacing? That can vary depending on the guitar. Most everything fits everything, but I can't say 100% for sure. It's just something that you have to measure. If you have a question about that and you want to replace the bridge on your guitar, we actually have a really nice Strat replacement bridge at DylanTalksTone.com. If you want to get one, just shoot me a message and tell me what your guitar is, and I will tell you how to take the measurements and what measurements I need, and we'll just to make sure you get the right one. Even if it's not the one that's on the website, we'll make sure that it's the one that fits your guitar. So that's pretty easy to do. It's just a matter of knowing how to order it. Acoustic pickup options. I did not see this until just now. For some reason, I'd glossed over this. I would love to talk about acoustic pickups. In fact, one of the ways I'd like to do it is I'd like to there is a guitar in particular in our town that I want to get my hands on and bring it over here and talk about it. And maybe I'll get the man that plays that guitar to come over here and talk about it. My two favorite brands for acoustic guitar pickups are Cole Clark acoustic guitars and LR Baggs acoustic pickups. They're the two reasons why I don't make them, because somebody else already does that is amazing, and there's really nothing to add, in my opinion. I think they're that good. I have LR Baggs in my Breedlove, and my friend Will has a Cole Clark. And the cool thing about the Cole Clark stuff is they have 3 kinds of pickups. And they're very, very cool. So they have like a microphone in there, like an actual little microphone, even with like a little windsock on it and everything. It's like a little tiny microphone. And then they have the normal under the saddle thing. And then they also have this like piece of tape that is a piezo, but it's basically like a piece of tape that goes across the top of the guitar. So anytime you're banging on it or you're playing very percussively, then you can balance all 3 of those mics in that pickups in that guitar and get a really realistic acoustic sound. Super fun. Really, really fun. And I think that to me is the win for that stuff. Let's see. There's my water bottle. I'm going to need some water tonight. I was actually going to mix myself a drink, and I walked out there and it was like 8:56, and I did not have time to go over to the bar. I was going to mix myself a screwdriver and have something to sip while we did this show tonight, and I just ran out of time. So I'm just drinking water. So that's a little story that probably didn't need to be told, but I just wanted to tell it.
Random.
Totally random. Trying to think of other things that went on this week. Lindsey Buckingham got fired from Fleetwood Mac, which is really weird. He's been playing on and off with Fleetwood Mac since before I was born. So, which is like, what, 1982? So, he's been playing with them since, what, 75? Something like that. So, that's really weird, and it sounds pretty final, you know. But what I don't understand is, if Stevie Nicks never plays with them, and Lindsey Buckingham is fired, then it's just like Mick Fleetwood and a bunch of other people that is like, it's like 38 Special, right? Like there's one old man that worked on the tour bus in the 80s, and so they still call it 38 Special, or some of the, you know, there's all kinds of bands that are like, you know, it's like, well, the founding member was my cousin's brother, and all I ever did was sweep the floor, but I'm the closest thing there is, so we are Van Halen. Or, you know, whatever, not Van Halen, but, you know, whatever band it is. So I don't really understand what's happening there, but I thought I'd mention it because it came up today in the news. What else is going on over there in Chatland?
You have a new viewer that I could see the notification, because if you're in the chat, remember that it's me chatting with you tonight. I can see the notification where they spent all day watching your videos, and he missed the notification that we were going live, but he's in the live show. But he is looking forward to if you could discuss fret wire and what pickups sound best with some word I don't know and rich light type fretboards. And then he just said, I'm looking forward to discussing fret wire's effect on tone.
That is very, very cool, because we're going to talk we weren't going to talk about fretwire, but fretwire came up twice. That makes twice today in live videos coming up to the show. So that has been a great addition to what we're going to talk about. Excuse me. I really should have had that vodka and orange juice before we came on.
Would you like me to go make you one?
No. That's okay. Where is he from?
I don't know. NY is in his name makes me think he's from New York, but I could be totally wrong.
I saw the notification as we were coming on live, and I didn't get a chance to thank him, and I didn't know if he was going to stick around for the live show.
He's commented in the live show, so
Excellent.
I assume he's still here.
And actually, when we did our little live thing about 5:30 or whenever that was, when you were off gallivanting around and then commenting in, there was probably 3 or 4 new people as well that were like, we're hoping we're going to make the deal tonight. I tell you what, before we get into the nut and saddle and fret wire conversation, because that's super techie, let's play around with this telly just a little bit, because I promised that I would, and I know he's got kids and he's in St. Louis. It's possible that he might need to put the kids to bed or whatever, and I don't want him to miss this.
Is he on?
I don't know if he is or not. He said that he was going to try to watch tonight.
All right.
First of all, before we move on from that, I definitely want to find out where this gentleman is from, and definitely thank you for watching my videos all day. That is really cool, and I'm glad that people are finding value in all this stuff. One other little small note that keeps coming up. Somebody keeps telling me we need to get different microphones so they're not in front of our faces.
I like my face hidden, though.
I would do something about that. It's just a matter of we would have to rearrange the whole studio again. And one thing at a time. One thing at a time. So
if we're making requests, I want different headphones because I hate these.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. The next show sponsor we get, I will buy you a set of headphones.
Do they all have to look like this? Like, this is just the way they have to be?
How they look?
Yeah, they're horrible.
No, I mean, I can get
And
gold ones.
why do
We could
mine-
get like Beyonce gold.
Like, why
We
does
could
mine
get-
have all this space?
I don't know. That is weird. It looks like one of those, like in the 80s when people had braces and they had that like headgear thing that like went around their
we
head.
should make some fake headgear. That'd be awesome.
Oh, I just had a review come in on my website saying, just wow, I got done changing the pickups in my Strat with your classic 5 Strat pickups. I don't know what else to say other than wow, they brought my guitar to life. They brought my amp to life. Very happy with them. In fact, I'm ecstatic you make kick-ass pickups. So, well, thank you, Daryl. His name was Daryl. So, thank you very much. Well, let's talk about some other pickups that I made right here in this very guitar that I have in my hand. So, I was just going to play it a little bit. Playing through this is a Vibroverb profile on the Kemper, and I have it going. It's got delay from the Kemper, and it's kind of long. I've been playing with this for a little while today, and I'm using the Keeley D&M drive, rkfx.com. Check them out. It's my favorite overdrive in many, many years. I literally sold my King of Tone, and this is the only overdrive pedal that I have, and I love it. A little bit about this guitar. This is a guitar, actually. I built this for a national touring act, and then some things came up with a different endorser and blah, 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 and he could not keep it and did not keep it. So sent it back to me because, I'm not as big as somebody else that could make a decision about those sorts of things. So it ended up not staying with him. It's got a Richlite fretboard on it. So when we talk about those questions that he just asked, you get to hear a Richlite fretboard right now. And it has nickel frets on it, 6150. It's my favorite fret wire. So we can talk a little bit about fret wire as well. And then it's got my flat 6 tele pickups in it. It's got a real Bigsby B5 on it. I do not use imported ones. It's got Bourne's 500K pots with a 0.047 capacitor. And it has Klusen double line tuners on it. They're not locking. It has an alder body. It's just a tele with a Bigsby on it. And it sounds thusly. So that's what it sounds like. It sounds like a tele with a Bigsby on it. And the reason I say it like that is because I know we had a question come up about pickups that would go with a Richlite fretboard. So when we start talking about, it's a great segue kind of into our other discussion tonight about nuts and saddles and fret wire and all that stuff. The reason it's kind of all works together is we talked a lot because of my goofy bolt the neck to the fence post video about, you know, the whole tone wood thing and the percentage of what makes a difference in a guitar, right? So the sound all happens right here, right? It happens between the nut and the saddle. Most everything happens between the nut and the saddle. Now, what's interesting is, since we have a Bigsby guitar here, that it actually goes all the way to where the strings anchor over here. So, but the majority of what takes place that makes all the sound is between the nut and the saddle. Now, some bleed over off into the tuning keys and the posts, and bleed over off into the backside and the bridge, you know, the anchor points over here. And then, of course, off into the neck material and into the body. But it is exponentially less a factor the further away it gets from the nut and the saddle. But the nut and the saddle, because of the way a string moves, okay, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think. The string actually doesn't move like up and down or side to side. Well, there's a couple things. Pickups only work when the string goes up and down. So when we pick the string and it goes to the side, what it's actually doing is going to the side and then going, it's kind of like going in a, like kind of like this, sort of this weird like figure eight sort of kind of thing. And it basically it moves over the pickup, and that's what makes the sound. I saw somebody say on the internet today that no matter what the nut is made of, it doesn't matter because it doesn't have anything to do with the tone. And I don't really know what he was smoking, because that is actually couldn't be further from the truth. If you made a nut out of Play-Doh, the guitar would probably sound something like this. No matter what you did, there would never be crispness to it at all. The hardness and the design of the nut has a lot to do with how much sustain you have and how much clarity to the note that you have. If you did not, like, let me see if I can simulate what would happen if your nut was cut wrong. So here is, okay, there's your E. Now here, this is what would happen. Let's see if I can do it. I'm trying to deaden it. There it goes. So listen to this weird buzzy kind of honk that happens on it. Okay, now listen to this note. Okay, it might be super subtle, but what's happening is I was trying to mute the string behind the nut and actually pull it down into the nut so that the angle was wrong, and it completely changes the tone of the nut, the tone of the note. So how this thing is cut is 100% perfect, or is 100% important to the tone of your guitar. The same thing on the other end of the guitar where your saddles are. Let's talk about the nut first. So let's talk about some kind of fundamentals. Now, you guys can laugh all you want, but I drew pictures just for you. So here we have, obviously, the nut, and there, you know, it is what it is. Be happy with my awesome drawing. Here, let's do this. Okay, so see where the angle of the nut comes down to the peg head. That's super key. And as it goes across the nut, that is super key as well. And then we want height off of the nut, 20 thousandths or something like that. Okay, so this is a pretty basic drawing. We know what it's supposed to look like. Obviously, it's more crooked. But what I want to show you now is this is really cool. I drew this drawing to show you a couple of things. It's kind of Gibson versus Fender in a weird way, but not really. You notice on the right side how the strings go completely straight through. That's what it's supposed to picture anyway. And then on the left side there, you see how it pulls off to the side. Now, here's the interesting part about this is Gibson has figured out more or less how to make that work and everything is fine. However, if you have a straight pulling guitar like a Fender, like this, like a Fender style guitar, and you have the nut slot in there crooked, and you put a kink in that string, you see what I'm saying? Like it would go through there instead of being straight like it's supposed to be. It would actually be like kind of go through and have a kink to it. Then you're gonna have buzzing. You're gonna have muting. You're gonna have all kinds of weird little artifacts. Okay, so you don't want to have that. You want it to be as straight as possible. Now let me show you. Let's talk about nut depth. Let's see if I drew a picture here. I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. Here, we're gonna have to take my face off of there though. Because hang on. I don't know how to use my own stuff. Here we go. So there's a lot of arguments, and people will fight me on the internet about this all the time. I think, was it Randy, actually, the show sponsor tonight, who said in a conversation last week or the week before that he uses or suggests to people to use welding tip cleaners for string files because they're cheaper, and you can get them in different gauges. I think it was welding tip cleaners, and you could use them to file nuts. Now, look at all the way to the left. See that super deep groove? You don't ever want that on your nut, because then what will happen is it'll actually mute the string, because the string will bind back and forth, especially if you have something like a Bigsby on it. See the one in the middle where the nut is very, very all the way to the top? Well, it can pop out. It can pop out and slide. I've had that happen a lot of times too. You see the nut on the right, the nut slot on the right? That's actually a triangle. And actually, you can use a triangle file. I know really good luthiers that have used triangle files to file their nuts for years. A triangle file works just fine. And here's why. Because when you use a triangle file, you only have little parts of the string that are contacting the nut on the kind of on the outsides of the string, and it allows the nut to move back and forth. So when you have a Bigsby like this, it can go back to pitch. So how the nut is cut is really, really important. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it, then I would send it to somebody. Because it is almost the most important thing. Let's talk about materials really quick. Let's talk about this stuff. This is basically your oops. Hang on. There we go. So let's talk about this stuff. This is like a GraphTech material. So it is not as hard as bone, but there are some major, major benefits to GraphTech. GraphTech stuff, Tusk is what it's called from their brand. It's a plastic, but it has graphite in it. It's very low friction. It's kind of expensive, but it works really, really good. The only downsides to it that I find, and tonally it's great. You will hear a lot of people, and they will say that they can hear the difference between a GraphTech nut and a bone nut, and that it kills, sustain and all this kind of stuff. But I honestly, if there's like this weird visual thing that happens with guitar players when they see something and then all of a sudden they have what they read is in their mind, and no matter what you tell them or what they hear, they see a certain thing and they make up their mind about it. GraphTech is one of those things. It's a great material. They make saddles out of it. They make nuts out of it. It's awesome. It does not hurt the environment. It is not, it is not bone. The one really cool thing I would never use, in fact, when I bought my acoustic guitar, I was going to replace everything with bone stuff. And I was talking to my guy at Breedlove, and he said, do not replace your saddles and your nut on your new guitar with bone, because they have density differences in them, and GraphTech Tusk stuff is 100% consistent all the way across, and so when that vibration will be even from string to string. He said on an acoustic guitar it's really, really, really important. On an electric guitar it's actually kind of less noticeable, but on an acoustic it's really, really important. So make sure that you do not replace that stuff, and it will actually sound better than bone. So I left it. These guys know what they're talking about. This wasn't even my idea, but they knew what they were talking about. Let's talk about one cool thing here. This is pretty cool stuff. Brass. Have you ever used a brass nut? It sounds way different. It gives the guitar a very interesting, twangy sort of thing. It is very, very cool. It sounds amazing. It sounds absolutely amazing. Now I'm going to do this backwards this time. We're going to go ahead and try putting my face back in a box and not mess it up, because I want to talk about Gibson's adjustable nut of 2015. This thing is cool on many different levels. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, that's the dumbest thing I ever saw, and Gibson, blah, blah, blah. We're not talking about that tonight. I want to talk specifically about the functionality of this thing. It works. What it is you see how it has two layers to it. This is why I like this. There's two reasons. One is it gives you adjustability. You can actually adjust the nut up and down. Brass actually wears pretty quickly. And I think they actually went from brass to titanium so that they wouldn't have wear problems. But what's really neat about this is because a Gibson has that weird pull angle, what they've done is they're able to now have less of the string binding and causing that kink in it than you normally would have with a regular nut that has to go across this quarter-inch sort of span of being crooked, where it doesn't have to do that in this nut. So it really does make sense. Not to mention, it's adjustable. I think it's very, very cool. Super cool idea. And I don't think Gibson got enough credit for it a couple years ago when everybody was flipping out. So then when we start talking about frets are also the other contact point because they become the nut. So most of the time, the effectiveness of the nut is only on a open string. Sorry.
I love that. That was the same song that was in my head when you played that first note.
I didn't even mean to do that. I didn't even mean to do that. Anyway. And I had a Bigsby, so I can't remember. I can't remember how it goes. But anyways, that's really funny. The content police will be on me for copying somebody. Anyways, the bottom line is when you play the note, then the fret becomes the tonal area. So now everything's happening between here and here. So yeah, frets can make a big difference. Now, does the material actually make a difference in the tone? That would be something it would almost be impossible to test. Because what you would have to do is literally
I just lost you.
refret the same guitar over and over so that nothing else in the guitar changed except the fret material itself. That's the only way you would be able to test that. And basically, it's not worth it. That being said, we did a video like 6 months ago about what really matters in the tone, and it is really the interaction of your hands on the guitar. So fret wire, as far as size and hardness and feel and smoothness and all that sort of stuff, the interaction of your hand with the guitar makes so much difference in the tone that just play something that's comfortable. Don't forget that when you use big fret wire, it's going to make the guitar feel bigger because the string is going to be further away from the fretboard, right? But it is also going to give you more room and more leverage to bend because you can get up underneath the string and still fret the note, where you can't do that with tiny, tiny strings, not as well anyway. But remember that the effective size of the neck changes when you put fatter frets on it. It actually makes the guitar feel bigger in your hand. So a lot of people don't think of that because they figure, well, it's a slim C neck with a blah, 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 blah. But when you put tall frets on it, that holds the strings further away from the neck, and it makes the guitar feel bigger, right? Just like the radius of the fretboard matters too, because as the radius falls away, like on a 7 1/4, on a 12, it's going to feel thicker because the shoulders of the neck are actually further this way. A couple of little tips for you. What's going on over there in guitar land or in chatty land?
They're very digressed because it's just a lot of nut talk.
Oh,
I don't know. They're just having their own conversation.
All right.
It's not really anything for me to contribute to that conversation.
No questions coming out of there or anything, though?
Mm-mm.
Because it is 9:40. And that was the material that I had prepared for the evening. So I didn't have a whole lot of stuff. So hit me with some stuff. If you have something, let me know. Because we have a few extra minutes tonight. Trying to go back through some of these questions from last week. Somebody did ask, why don't people use brass nuts more?
Mm-hmm.
Because the older Japanese guitars, they did have them. I've actually, personally, I've used them a lot. The reason people don't use them is because they're expensive. Brass is expensive. It is also really hard to cut. I've ruined files before cutting brass nuts. They're harder to cut. And what's really weird about it is you would think that they would wear forever, but they don't. Every time you play something or bend a string, that string is sliding back and forth. And it's just sawing away, right? And your strings are steel. The brass is softer. It wears. Now we know that bone wears. The Graphtec Tusk stuff does not wear hardly at all. The only complaint I have about Graphtec stuff is actually cutting it. If you get their pre-formed ones where the slots are already slotted and stuff, they're really nice. But mine, when I cut them from scratch, they have this weird fuzzy stuff, and it's just harder to make them look nice, in my opinion.
So we had somebody say they would love to see a video on how to do I think he said quick and dirty the first time. This time he said down and dirty setup with only inexpensive tools from Harbor Freight, including how to cut the nut slot. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be very helpful.
The only reason I have not done a tools from Harbor Freight video is because the real tool set that I buy, I guess I've never really addressed that. So everybody's always like, yeah, well, it's way cheaper to get all the guitar stuff, all the tools you need from Harbor Freight. Except that the Cruise Tools little red pack that I get is only $30. So in order to buy, I should literally go price it out at Harbor Freight.
Our Harbor Freight is the grouchiest store in the
Oh
area.
man, all the old men go in there like on a Saturday and they're like, I'm angry because I have to go to a craft fair and load my wife's crafts up at 4:00, and they're all in there like just angry and buying stuff, and I hate going in there. But the real reason I haven't made that video, because I have thought about it, because everybody's like, well, yeah, you could just get it cheaper at Harbor Freight, but you can't. And the reason is because number one, this is just my opinion. I'm just going to give you my opinion. But the most annoying part of doing anything guitar related, there's a couple things. One is Allen keys that don't fit correctly and give you the possibility of damaging your truss rod and or your little tiny threaded adjustments on like your Telecaster bridge. Number one. And number two, when the string cutter doesn't actually cut the strings and you actually have to sit there and go like this and then like bend it back and forth, and then you use it for 4 or 5 string changes and it doesn't work as good anymore and it's junk. That's what happens when you buy tools at Harbor Freight. Those two things. And I'm not willing to risk my hardware on my guitar with cheap tools. So that whole thing being its own issue, that's why I don't use cheap tools. But the budget part of it, and I know a lot of people can't, if you're just beginning and you can't afford to invest a lot into this hobby that maybe you're just starting. The toolkit that we use and that we share, and there's links all over the place. We could actually share it here. Is specifically made for guitar players, and it is specifically small, that goes in your guitar case, and it has everything you need in it. The wire cutters work amazingly, and the screwdrivers don't strip out. Everything works perfectly, and I want to say that thing is $30. I just can't justify doing the other thing for that. That being said, if you want me to do a video where we do a start to finish setup, kind of an uncut start to finish setup, I will show you exactly how I do it. I don't mind doing that. That sounds boring to me from my perspective of how we make videos, but it could be really valuable, because to tell you the truth, I do it exactly the same way you do it, in that I literally sit in my living room. I put a Netflix movie on, which I wouldn't do in the video, but I literally put a Netflix or a YouTube video on, and I tinker with my guitar. That's how I do it for customers' guitars. That's how I do it for my guitars, for everybody's. I literally sit the stuff out on the living room floor, and go through all the steps. So if you want me to sit on the living room floor and do that, that'd be awesome, actually. That makes sense to do a video like that.
All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
If I have a stealth pickup mounted under the pick guard, what DC output does it need to be in order to work effectively?
I feel like you asked me this before. If it is not a new person.
It's not a new person, but I don't remember asking you this before.
Okay. I think he might have asked me this before.
Oh. I can't speak to that.
The DC resistance is not going to be, because I think I answered it the same way. Mm-hmm. The DC resistance is not going to be as important as the strength of the magnet. So I would say get it as hot as reasonably possible. I've done this before. And what I found is if I could get like 7K on a neck pickup, which is about what you can reasonably fit on there, and then use ceramic magnets. That's what I would do. Use ceramic magnets or Alnico 8 magnets. Something real, real strong. I will tell you that I've experimented with this, but not enough to be comfortable to be an expert on it. To tell you, oh, if you try this, it will work perfectly, because I've not gotten that far myself. But I will say that you need a lot of magnet. That would be the thing. Don't use like neodymium magnets or any of that kind of stuff, because that you'll ruin things with that. But ceramic or Alnico 8. Try that. Bar magnets, like on the bottom, like a humbucker, like lots of magnet. And then let me know what your findings are. I'd be curious to hear that.
Ready for another one?
Absolutely.
How often should you replace the nut on a guitar? Is it just dependent on how much the guitar has been played? I bought a used 2011 guitar, so wondering if I should replace the nut.
The only time I will tell somebody to replace the nut immediately is if it's plastic. So if it is a plastic nut, maybe we could find out what kind of guitar it is and work back around to this question. Mm-hmm. But if it's not giving you trouble and it's playing fine and it's staying in tune and the intonation is good and you can use your cowboy chords, you know, like your first position down here chords, and everything sounds fine and it's in tune, then leave it alone until you have a problem. I mean, I've got a Strat up there. It's a 1985. I've had it since 1989. I've never replaced a nut. Not one time ever. So
somebody else responded and said they should never have to do that unless somebody really messed up. And the same guy said, thanks. I'm trying to get rid of low E string buzz on the lower frets and having a devil of a time, which is why he asked the question.
Then maybe you need a nut. It's possible that you do. What I would check. Ooh, let's go back to one of my drawings.
They did get entertainment from your drawings, too. I forgot about the handmade drawings.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Well, you know, I used to draw these live, like when we were doing videos.
Thanks. I don't mean it as a compliment, by the way.
Whatever. Hey, man, I can't afford like a graphic art designer, you know, whatever. All right, so let's look at this drawing really quick. So before we go to this drawing, and you make fun of it, here's what I would tell you to check on the guitar that you are having buzzy problems with. Okay. I would, here, let's go to this drawing. I would put a feeler gauge below the low E string that's giving you buzzy problems right there on that first fret. And I would measure the distance between the top of the first fret and the bottom of the string. And if it's an acoustic guitar, it's probably going to be somewhere around 25 to 30 thousandths of an inch. That you're going to want to have in between there. If it's less than that, chances are that's where your buzz is coming from. Listen close and see if it's coming from...
Is the Schecter Solo 6 with the Tusk nut, by the way.
Yeah, that's weird that would be worn out in 2 years.
2 years?
Or 2011? 5 years? It might need a new nut, actually. It might.
It's been 5 years since 2011. Good job.
Is it 5? Okay.
No, you said 5. It's 2018, dude.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay.
That means we're getting old.
I'm going to say, yeah. I'm going to say it's possible that you do need a new nut. So if it's a Schecter, it's an electric. So you probably could get away with like 15 to 20 thousandths of an inch. 18 to 20 thousandths of an inch between the low E and the nut. I would also be interested to know if it is actually, is it buzzing when you fret chords, or is it buzzing when it is open? And is it buzzing at the nut, or is it actually buzzing against frets? Okay, those are things that I would want to know before telling you to go spend money. Because if it's buzzing against frets, like when you play it open, that could be other problems. If it's only buzzing against frets when you're fretting, and it's only one string, it might just be a setup problem.
So your customer, the viewer, I don't know. Yes, that asked about the hidden pickup. He just confirmed that it's a triple rail humbucker size pickup, total output of about 15K, and that's what he's planning on using.
Triple rail? Oh yeah, just throw that thing in there, dude. That thing should work. That's a lot of pickup.
And then back to the nut conversation.
Yes.
How do you tell if a nut is plastic?
Put a magnet on. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I'm assuming they're asking the difference between plastic and bone.
Yeah, bone, you
Just
will
lick it. I'm just kidding.
Dude, I was about to say that. I literally was about to say that. Bone looks like this. Hang on. I actually have a picture. Oh, I don't. I thought I had a picture of bone nut to show you tonight, and I don't. If it's shiny, it's plastic. Okay. Really expensive, really good guitars, like $5,000 and $6,000 guitars. Sometimes those guys will polish those bone nuts to be like super shiny, and they will be like a yellowish, goldish color because bone turns this like yellowy color. Plastic nuts will be white. Bone is not white, so plastic will be white, and it will be shiny. Plastic will pretty much always be shiny. If it's shiny, it's probably plastic. If it's like a matte finish, and if the guitar cost under $1,000 new, it's not bone. Typically.
Really?
Yeah, typically.
So plastic is common?
Oh yeah, like all your Epiphones, like that Schecter, that Schecter we just talked about. That's probably like a $900 guitar or $800 guitar, something right in there. And they're a very forward-thinking company, so they started using a lot of that Graphtec stuff.
Somebody said if you can melt it as plastic, hit it with your soldering iron.
If I'll tell you what else, don't like try to bust it out or anything, but sometimes they fall out. Like let's say you wanna like change your strings, and sometimes they'll fall out. You can always tell a plastic nut because it'll have little casting holes in the bottom of it. It'll have 2 holes or 3 holes in the bottom of it. It'll be hollow. Plastic nuts are hollow too. That's the other thing. That's why I tell you, if it is a plastic nut, go get a new one. Your guitar will sound better. But if it's an Epiphone Les Paul, if it's a Squier Telly, if it's a Mexican Telly, if it's any kind of guitar in that range, unless it's like a Schecter or a Charvel or one of these guys with like Floyd Roses on it or something. No, Floyd Roses don't have plastic nuts. Anything, kind of modern that has Tusk. Tusk usually has a matte finish, but it's usually black. So, yeah. Those are good questions, man. Those are like making me think. I'm like, how do I describe this even? Super fun. We have 5 minutes left already.
Already?
Yeah. I feel like this flew by, at least for me. You felt like it did not?
I don't know. It felt like normal to me.
Right on. Well, that's okay too.
You got one more?
Yeah, let's do one more.
What is your view on the design of rail hammer pickups?
I've only played them twice, and I think they're super cool because I like Joe Naylor and I like Reverend, and I think the things he does is cool. And I've never tried to build them. I've never tried to do anything. For those of you that don't know rail hammer, they'll have it'll be like a humbucker, and it'll have like 3 poles, like normal round poles, and then the bottom part will be like a bar. So it's like a split poles and a bar, and then alternated on the other side. Really cool. They're cool, man. They're really cool. They sound cool. I I just think they're neat. I don't know anything about them. I've never taken one apart. I don't know what's in there. I don't know how they're made. I know nothing about it except for I knew a guy who had a Reverend Sensei, and I almost bought it from him. And I played that guitar twice, and I really, really liked it. And it had those pickups in it. And I told myself if I bought that guitar, I would not change them. I thought they were very cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we're getting down to it. I really appreciate everybody hanging out with us tonight. I know this was a little bit of a crazy one. And I know you guys liked my drawings. If you want some of my custom drawings, I can email them to you. You know, you could blow them up. Like, maybe that'll be a thing someday. Maybe somebody will be like, I could like have them made into prints. Like, not Prince, like Prince is over there on the wall, like the guy Prince. I could make them into a print and then like sign them, and you could have my drawings from my videos someday.
I don't want any.
No? Okay. All right. Well, that's that then. I hope everybody has a great day, and I hope everybody has a good week. Make sure that you keep up with us this week on the internet, because we are doing more and more stuff. And I do want to give a plug. I don't normally plug our other channel on this show. However, we are doing some really, really cool things on musicandmascara.com. The reason I mention it is because we've been doing a bunch of content about helping people to reach more people with their music. And we're doing some content specific to that on our Music and Mascara channel. So musicandmascara.com. And also the Music and Mascara YouTube channel is Music and Sign Mascara. Okay. So go subscribe to that, because if you are interested in promoting your music and that sort of stuff on the internets, we're going to talk a lot about that on this channel too, but I don't upload the same content both places. So you might find value out of that other channel as well, specifically on that subject.
And it's why he has a spiffy shirt on.
It is why I have a spiffy shirt on, because today's meeting was having to do with another company that I'm helping with that same stuff. So we will be doing much more content and much more stuff about that. I hope everybody has a great week. Make sure that you check us out on all the internets at Dylan Talks Tone. And until next week, you all have a very, very good one.